When I joined the company, they hadn't had a single product release in 2 years. So within about 6 months from my joining the company, we changed things around, and we were able to start producing product releases every 4 weeks. 4 seems to be a magic number, but that's the number that worked for us in both companies. And what I'd like to do is start telling you about how we did that. It all starts with asking some basic questions. And then both companies, the first thing we did was we asked simple questions. The first question was about relevance. We talked to all the users, talked to all the stakeholders, and asked, what is it that we should be focusing on? How do we make sure that the team is focused about the important stuff, and what is really important? And how can we make ourselves focus all our efforts on only the things that matter, and not focus and not do anything that is not important? The other question we asked was about quality. What is the quality of this product or service that we're providing? Are we providing the best we can, and how is quality impacting the things that we deliver? The third question we asked was about the team. What is our team like? Are they working like a team? Can we make the team produce better? Can we all work in a way that we can be more effective? And practices. I think the keynote speaker referred to those as rituals. Rituals and practices are about the same thing. It's about what are the things we do on a daily basis that become habits that make us become more effective. And last but not least is the platform. What is it we're building all this those systems on? How can we build platforms that allow us to change and adapt and make things work? So by starting with those 5 questions, they're 5, yeah. By answering those 5 questions, you can start digging deeper into how you can make things happen. So when I moved to that software company, the first thing I did was I asked some questions about relevance. What do you think was the first thing I did as VP of Engineering there? I solved that problem, yeah. I actually talked to the VP of Sales. I went to the VP of Sales and said, okay, Mr. VP of Sales, what is it that we sell here? What is it, the product that we do? And he was very proud of it, and he said, well, you know, we provide this product that manages Oracle databases, and we support 3 flavors of Oracle database on 4 platforms, or on 4 operating systems and 3 hardware platforms. So I started thinking, that's about 36 products, 36 versions of the same product. So I started thinking, that's a lot of product. So I thought of the next question. Can anyone think what it was? Which ones are you selling? He said, well, we sell them all. I said, really? He said, yeah. We sell 90% of Oracle on Dell on Linux, and then the rest of them on all the other 35. I said, So I have 36 products to support, 36 code bases to maintain, 36 times every bug I have to manage. Do you mind if I kill them all and keep just one? And he said, yeah, why not? So the first thing we did was reduce the complexity of the product from 36 down to 1. And what impact did that have upon the business? 0, right? So the first thing you need to do is think about the focus of the areas that you're looking for. Then the next thing I did was went and talked to the engineers. And I asked them, what do you guys do on a daily basis? And their answer was, well, we can't keep up. And the answer is why? Well, we're always being asked for all these new features that we need to bring in, but every time we try to fix a feature, we add a new feature, all these bugs start coming in the way, and we start to have to fix the bugs that are in the way so we can add the new features. So I asked, so how many bugs do you have? Any guesses? They said, we have 2,000 bugs. I said, what? I said, 2,000 bugs. I said, well, if you have 2,000 bugs, why are you working on new features now? And actually, I did something that was quite controversial at the time, with the salespeople pushing us, with the CEO pushing us, with the board pushing us to produce more product. I said, no more new features. We're not going to do any new features until we fix every single bug in the system. So we spent the first couple of months cleaning up the system. And I did something else. Then I said, okay, how come we have so many bugs in the system? And the answer is, well, I went to talk to the QA manager there, Sharon, and she said, well, nobody listens to me. I said, okay, we're going to change all this. What we're going to do is we're going to make quality assurance the gate to every release. In one of our meetings, I brought Sharon to the front and said, guys, ladies, Sharon is your release gate. If she's not happy, your product doesn't go out. So the first thing we did was make sure that QA was the sole decision maker for every release. But we did a few other things as well. We made sure that we had source code management. And that seems like a trivial thing, but when you're talking about 36 versions of the same code, which by the way reduced down to 1, having source code management is critical. We made bug fixing a priority, and basically what we said is we don't release things unless all the bugs are out, and we insisted on user acceptance testing. Why? Because even if we as engineers think that it works, unless the user is happy with it, it doesn't really matter. But you might start thinking, well, if you want to have zero defect software, you're going to spend all your life fixing bugs and doing nothing. So we took some risks. And we said, listen, we understand that you can't have zero defects. We understand that you can't fix every bug. So let's take some risk and put some thresholds about what we want to do, and let's come up with some rules. We will say things are done and clean if we don't have any P1 bugs left, and if through testing we don't find any new bugs. To us, that's the point where we think, at least in our environment, where we felt that was the optimal time to say that we have good enough code. Why? Because we know we're going to iterate and we're going to do some other stuff. And the idea here is this. Make sure that you have clean code, but don't spend your time becoming perfect. Okay? Then we also focused on the team. And to me and to both companies that I worked for, basically it's the people that make the difference. It is the team that makes the difference. And so when I was at the first company, which was a startup, we excelled at hiring good people. And what we did was we hired people for attitude, not for skills. Of course, you want some basic skills to be there. But the skills you don't have, you can develop. Or you can buy through outsources or partners. But the attitude is what's critical. So we had a very, very extensive hiring process. Our hiring process involved everybody in the company when we were small, and then larger groups when we were smaller groups when we were bigger company. We made sure that everybody interviewed everybody, almost, until we couldn't because we were too many. But then we'd have hiring committees hiring everybody. And by the way, the engineers were hired in the hiring committees for engineers include people from HR, people from sales, people from operations, people from marketing, people from finance. Why? Because we wanted people who fit in the team. The other thing we did was we focused on building relationships between the individuals we have. It doesn't mean that we wanted people to marry each other, but we wanted people to work with each other. So a lot of the work I did as a leader was spending a lot of time talking to people, understanding the issues between them, and helping them working it out so that people could work better together. But at one of the board meetings, again, that same board member who made us change the whole system told us one thing. He said, guys and ladies, you guys have built a great team. You've built a great company. In 2 years, you've hired more than 200 A+ people. That's an amazing achievement. Well done. But then he gave us the sandwich. And the sandwich was, but that's not good enough. And we started thinking, what do you mean it's not good enough? Any thoughts? He said, there's something more important than hiring good people. And that is getting rid of people who don't fit very quickly. And that's a very, very hard thing to do. People who don't fit are not necessarily bad people. They just don't fit in the environment you have. And if you want an environment where people can collaborate, people can work together, people can build relationships together, people who can work as a unit, then you need to make sure you have a coherent team. We also introduced practices, or what the previous speaker mentioned as rituals. And I've mixed up a whole bunch of things here that I'd like to share with you. Some of them are rituals, some of them are physical things. But the first thing I did as a leader in the environment, we had the opportunity to move from one building to another. So the first thing I did, I said, okay, no more walls. Nobody ever has an office. When I first did that, people got mad at me. The engineer said, what do you mean no offices? We need space to think. I can't think with noise behind me. I said, okay, we'll have lots of small meeting rooms where you can go decompress, where you can have meetings, where you can go and think. But between us, no walls. In fact, we didn't even have cubes. We have desks with very short barriers. So we moved to the building, everybody being grumpy. Within 3 months, they were so excited about it. In fact, they started moving things around, and they started working together. Why is that important? Because there's a lot of informal conversations that happen, a lot of informal knowledge transfer that happens when people talk to each other. It's so easy to be typing on a keyboard and then think, I wonder what I can do about this, and turn around and see your colleague and they says, do you know how to do this? Or better yet, it's happened to me when I was a programmer, I start using bad foul language, getting mad at something, and somebody say, what's wrong with you? Let me help you. So having open space is very important. The other thing we did is try to reduce the use of email. One of my favorite rules is, if you're mad at somebody and you feel like you have to send an email, don't. Get off your chair and go talk to them. And I think there's a lot of reasons why that's important. Because email does not convey all the messages you want. And secondarily, I think having a face-to-face conversation starts building those relationships. I have a confession. I learned this rule the hard way. Back in the 90s, when I was still a boy, I was still a baby actually, my father calls me up in the States from Lebanon and says, Yousif, guess what? I just got email, send me an email. So I sent him an email. Hi Dad, I'm glad you have email, love you, talk to you soon, love, Yousif. Next week, I called him. So my mom answers, oh, he's sleeping. So I called him the week after. Oh, he's out walking. I called him a week after that. Oh, he's not at home. By the 4th time I called, my mom said, listen, Yousif, I have to confess something. Your dad is mad at you. I said, what do you mean? He said, you were so cold with him on email. Don't ever do that again. And all I was trying to say, hi Dad, I love you. So you have to be careful with the use of emails. Emails are they have their use, but if you feel like you have to send an email, just don't. The other one is, one of the first things I established, or we established when I moved to the second company, was establishing common time. In the States, how many of you work for a company with flex time? You know what flex time is. People can come in and go whenever they want. I think that's a great feature, and I think almost every company should have it. But we had a problem. People would show up at 9 and leave at 4. Others would show up at 1 and leave at 3. Some would come at 7 and leave at 10. I said, listen, guys, I'm not going to force you to come in at any time. But I got the whole team together and said, we need to make sure that all of us are in the office for at least a critical amount of time every day. And we agreed that we needed everybody to be at the office for 6 hours. So we said, okay, we have flex time, but nobody shows up after 9, and nobody leaves before 4. This way we made sure that we had enough critical mass of people so we can talk, we can collaborate, we can not exchange emails, and we can work together. The other thing we did was we set up a war room. By the way, is everybody still awake? I can't see you guys. The war room is very much the kind of room that the previous speaker talked about, where we had everything on the wall. In fact, when I moved to the company, they didn't have a place to do it. So guess what I did? I hijacked the cafeteria, went to Home Depot, bought one of those bathroom boards and turned it into a whiteboard. Actually, we bought 2. And we put all those architecture diagrams, all those bug lists, all those project plans, everything we needed to know about everything we did on that wall. And based on that, we started having daily stand-up meetings. I have to confess, they did not take 6 minutes. They ended up taking about an hour 15 minutes. But it was a very critical thing. Every day at 9 o'clock in the morning, everybody would show up, and we'd talk about the plans, we'd talk about the issues, we talk about the day before, we talk about what we're going to do tomorrow, today, and what we're going to move forward. And most importantly, we got buy-in from everyone. Everything we did in engineering had the buy-in from everyone else in the company and all the stakeholders. And like the previous speaker, the stakeholders are not just we people involved in the project. To me, stakeholders are anybody who can influence the progress of the project. They could be a client, they could be the lawyers. Any lawyers in the room? I have a confession. I used to call the lawyers, by the way, the legal department, the BPU, Business Prevention Unit. But good, no lawyers. So the point is we got stakeholders. And how do we get the stakeholders to be involved? Counter to what Agile likes to say, we had a lot of committees. And the reason we had committees is because we needed to make sure that we had consensus, we had buy-in from everything we do. Were the committees involved in everything we did? No, but the committees were involved in at least prioritizing the things we wanted to do. But there's a trick, and the trick is I made sure that I chaired every committee. Why? So we can help move the direction forward. Because if you don't chair the committee can start going in circle. Now, so I was being biased. I knew where I wanted to go. I got the buy-in from the people. I got their input. But in the end, somebody has to drive the committee forward. We also made sure that on the committee, we had the people that complained the most. I don't know if there's an American expression, keep friends close and enemies closer. You want the people who are going to object about your project, the people who are going to stop your project, involved as early in the project as possible. Why? Because if they have a problem, I'd rather find it now than find it just the day before I release. And by the way, one of the things I've discovered is if you get people who object all the time early and you convince them, they're your best ambassadors. They can start defending your project much better. And the way I did all this was walked around and drank a lot of coffee. So actually, they used to ask me at Inflow, the first company, say, so what do you do all day? Say, I walk around and drink coffee. What I mean by that is a lot of what you do in engineering, in software development, in product, in anything you do, is about relationships. It's about building those trust and making sure that people understand and making sure that you understand what people need. And the only way you can do that is by interacting with people. And the only way you can interact with people is to see them, shake their hand, talk to them, drink coffee with them, or tea. One of the key things with it, you asked, one of the questions I raised at the very beginning, and you're probably wondering, why 4 weeks? Well, in our cases, it was by design. The key thing here is that, just like the previous speaker was talking about, instead of being driven by requirements, instead of being driven by features, we used to say, we're going to provide a deliverable in 4 weeks. What can we put in those 4 weeks? And when things started running late, what are the things we can drop out to maintain the 4 weeks? 4 weeks were the two magic numbers for the two companies, but it doesn't have to be for you. You need to, guys, decide what that magic number is. And what you really need to do is, instead of designing by features and scheduling by features, schedule by time boxes. Time box your deliverables. Say, we're going to deliver by this date, and then when you have to compromise on the features. How do you compromise on the features? You compromise on the features by 1, checking what's relevant, back to the first question, and 2, getting buy-in from the stakeholders that this is okay to do. And all that takes is a lot of walking, a lot of coffee, okay? The other thing we did was we built our project plans based on resources and not based on tasks. The standard way of doing project planning is you list a whole bunch of tasks and the times, and then you assign resources to them. The challenge with that method is that if you have resource constraints, you don't know where they are, and you can't play around with them. So what we did was we flipped it around. We put the individual resources here, and by the way, those could be people, or they could be teams. They don't have to be individuals. And then we assigned the tasks to each team, and then when things happened, when change happens, does change happen at all? All the time. What we did is we said we play Tetris. So we started moving things around, and now I'm changing tasks around based on the resources I have. So if one task becomes more urgent than the other, I just swap them around. If the resources are interchangeable, I could swap the changes between the resources. So I still don't know what the name of that tool is, so I call it Tetris. If somebody can find me the name of that tool or tool that makes me do that, please let me know. Yes, it's been 15 years. And then what we did was once we had the middle plan, no, Excel doesn't work that well on that. We use Excel though. But the other thing we did was back on the board in the war room, back in the daily startup meeting, we manage those projects, we manage those plans on a daily basis. So every Monday, everybody on the team, before the daily stand-up meeting on Monday, everybody was required to go and put in the tasks on the chart for what are they going to do every day of the week. And every day at 9 o'clock, we'd sit down, we'd say, what did you do? What do you need to do? What's the help you need to get things done? So it's not just about putting plans, but managing them on a daily basis. And we managed them on a daily basis, and all it took was an hour and 15 minutes a day in the beginning. Towards the end, it was a 15-minute meeting. Never 6, but around 15. We also took risks in decision-making. One of the things that software engineers love to do is go into what I like to call analysis paralysis. We spend a lot of time building and thinking and analyzing the requirements, trying to think, what is the plan? We spend more time planning and less time doing. Everybody know this guy? Colin Powell has a whole bunch of leadership rules. One of my favorite rules that he has, he calls it the 40-70 rule. Has anyone heard it? It's not 40, by the way, 40-70 doesn't add up to 100, and it's for a reason. Some of the guys who work with me know that rule. The 40-70 rule is a rule to help you make decisions quickly. And basically what Colin Powell says is the following. Once you've gathered enough information to guarantee a 40% chance of success, execute. If you've waited to collect enough information to guarantee 70% chance of success, you've waited too long. So the idea is to have enough information so you have somewhere between 40 to 70% chance of success. And once you have that, make a decision and move on. Why? Because change is happening faster than we can manage. And there's nothing we can do to, even if we were 100% thinking that we're going to be successful, as we start the project is going to change. So if I wait until I'm 70%, I've waited too long. So take a risk and be ready for making changes. So a key part of decision making is make sure that you have enough information so you can get started, not too much information so you're stuck with what the decisions you've made. And we also use the 10-minute rule. And one know what the 10-minute rule is. The 10-minute rule is the following. If you're stuck on a problem for 10 minutes or more, escalate, ask a question, seek help. So don't be shy to ask for problems. You're in trouble if you're stuck for more than 10 minutes and you don't ask for help. Now, you can change that 10-minute rule to 1 hour. You can change it to 2 days. It depends on the context that you're playing with. But the bottom line is, don't be afraid to escalate. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And make sure you do it quickly. The 10-minute rule worked very well for us in both companies because we were startups, we were moving fast, and we wanted 4-week cycles. So the general rule was, if somebody was stuck and had a question, was stuck on an issue for more than 10 minutes, they better escalate or ask for help. We also, I think that's typical ritual in agile systems. We basically created a hands-on environment. We teamed up developers with business owners. We used workshops to develop code, and we put prototypes in the hands of users as fast as possible. Why? Because by having the business owners help us develop, by making sure that we are collectively developing things together, and by putting systems in the hands of the users, we could get much more feedback about what's needed and what's not, what works and what doesn't. Because as everybody knows, the business users never know what they need or what they want, and they won't know what they need or what they want until they start using it. And we trained, but it doesn't show here. But all of this talk was about rituals, it was about relevance, it was about quality. But there's one piece missing, and that is making sure that the platform we're building on really is flexible. Because if we build software or systems that are not flexible, then everything we do will just not work. So we used some key principles in developing those systems. The first one was pick a standard. One of my colleagues used to say the beautiful thing about standards is there's so many to choose from. There are many standards, there are many platforms. There are many ERP systems. There are many calendar systems. The bottom line is, I don't care which one you pick, but pick one. At the company that we built the complicated system, we decided that we're going to use MS SQL. We're going to use a Microsoft environment. We're going to use a web-based environment. So all our decisions were based on, is it MS Microsoft compliant? If yes, will it integrate with Microsoft systems? If the answer is yes, then we picked it. The other one was focus on integration and not on creation. The idea here is that you can do much more if you can integrate systems, and you can get more flexibility if you can modular systems and integrate them instead of basically customizing and creating custom code. And the way we did that, we followed a few rules. Buy what you can, build when you have to. Again, focus on integration, not customization. But only buy when you can't use what you have. Otherwise, you'll have a billion systems. So minimize the numbers of systems you're buying. Buy instead of coding, and focus on integration. And of course, only buy systems that you can modify. Remove redundancies. We took a lot of effort in trying to make sure that basically we didn't have overlaps between the systems we have, and that every single piece of data that we entered got entered and stored in one and only one place. In fact, we went a bit too far, I think, but again, that was 15 years ago. What we really did is, for example, we had a CRM system, we also had an accounting system, and they were all integrated as part of the big system we did. Well, CRM systems have customer information in them. So does an accounting system. So does a workflow system. By following this rule about removing redundancies and ensuring single points of data entry, what we did was, in addition to integrating the systems, we made a decision that all customer information has to again be entered and stored in the CRM system. So we actually went to the accounting system and disabled the contact information capability in there. So if you wanted to enter customer information, you only entered it from the CRM system. That did two things. First of all, it maintained data integrity, but secondarily got used to people started thinking, the end users started thinking in terms of, okay, if I want to do this kind of job, I use this system. If I want to do this kind of job, I use this other system. And one of the things I'd like to say we did, we designed systems backwards. Again, we're trying to say, what is the value of the system we're building? In our case, when we were trying to change the invoices, we were trying to change the invoice. So where did we start? We started with, what does the invoice look like? What does it look like to bill somebody in advance? What is the output? We started with the output, trickled that down to what, if that's the output, what are the processes that are needed to generate this output? And for these processes, what are the inputs you need to enter through this process to generate the output? So if you design it backwards, you can start doing things much faster. And we measured everything we did. Everything you could think of, we kept metrics on. Everything you could think of that made sense, we tracked. This is an example from another company I worked for, where the important things for us were customer service, relevance, reliability, agility, best practices, and preparation for the new campus. And by measuring those and going over them on a regular basis, everybody gets focused around the objectives we're trying to do. So by making sure we track them on a regular basis, customer service was important to us. So how are we doing this month? What are we going to do next month? How are you doing this week? What are we going to do about it to improve it is important. But what's really cool, or maybe weird, depending on your perspective, we didn't only measure things that are measurable. We measured our team values as well. We wanted to make sure that our team is working really well together. And the core values for us were not just words, they were important things for us. So we actually even measured things that you can't usually measure, like accountability, integrity, transparency. And we'd ask each other, how are we doing against that? So the question is, how do you measure that? In this example, what we did was, once a month, we'd send a survey to the whole team, say, each of you evaluate how we as a team are doing in terms of accountability. Each of you evaluate how we're doing in terms of integrity. Then we collate the results, share them with the team, then have a discussion about what are we going to do to improve those areas. The interesting thing is, those scores started low and they started going up. And they were done by the team, not just by me. So the bottom line is, in order to do things fast, you have to focus on the basic things. And they are, make sure that you deliver small value fast, make sure that you avoid rework, develop a collegial team, institute best fit practices, practices that make most sense for your organization, and build a flexible platform. And everything I talked about basically was based around those. And before I leave, I'll just leave you with one small story. And does anybody know the drunk story? This policeman is walking by on the street. He sees a drunk digging in the sand. So he asks them, what are you doing here? Says, well, I lost my keys. So the policeman says, can I help you? Look for those keys. Said, sure. Go look across the street over there. Said, wait a minute. You're digging here. Why do you want me to look for your keys over there? Says, because that's where I lost my keys. Said, then why are you digging here? Says, that's because where the light is. And the point here is, what you really need to focus on is the right problem, not the easy problem. The right problem, not the obvious problem. And the right problem is not always the obvious problem. So if you focus on the right problem, you'll get there.